Hello friends, and welcome to the Season 22 Building a Nation Treaty United recap. This time, it's personal. As always, if you do enjoy these, be sure to drop a like on the video. It helps out with the algorithm and just helps me know to keep doing them. Of course, we're live over on stream right now, doing the transfer window as we always do. We've got a big set of prospects to go through this year. It's a lot more fruitful this year than it was last year, I would say, honestly, in terms of the prospects available. So I'm very excited to get stuck in. And in addition, if you do want to watch the full VODs in their entirety, they're available over on the second channel, link in the description. There's also now clips from the streams going up on the second channel, just funny bits and that as well. So do check those out too. But without any further ado, we're going to jump in. And as always, the first piece of business that we have to attend to is the youth intake. This was the best prospect from this year's youth intake, George Coonan. I would say that he's better than some of the players we've had in the youth intake as of recent seasons, but we've decided to take a very drastic step this year regarding our youth intakes because they're still not particularly good. We've now had, I believe, 10 or is it 12 consecutive seasons of half-star youth intakes, despite having maxed out all of our facilities now. Well, as of April this year, we're going to be maxed out on the youth facilities as well, which is a side issue, but that's not the point. Everything else is maxed out. We had probably the best head of youth development in the world as well, and we've just seen nothing from it, unfortunately. Anytime we have had a good player, they've been poached before they even came through. We lost another one called Kieran Foley, who was 3-star yellow star when he was poached at presumably 14. So God knows what he's going to become. Probably an outrageous player, but we'll never get to see them because they just leave before they even come through our youth academy. So it does suck, but we're changing it all up because we have a new Hoyd, or we will do by the time you see this properly. And that man is Emmett Doran. He's retiring as a footballer, but we convinced him to become our new head of youth development. He's dreadful, but at this point, he's got 19 working with youngsters. Just the rest of him's dreadful. We're thinking anything is better than what we've had so far. So Emmett Doran, the club legend, 400 goal scorer Emmett Doran, has taken over as the head of youth development for the club. And hopefully ED7 we're to bring through some absolute gems in the future. And it can't be any worse, let's be honest. But now, transfers, because it's been a slightly down year in terms of the number of transfers, certainly in anyway, but there have been quite a few major outs that we need to discuss, and also there's some tactics changes this year to talk about. First major out was Przemysław Dara Inter put a bid in. I thought, you know what, for the price they were offering, let's do it. It was 9.75 million rising, I think. In addition, we had a 50% next sale fee clause, which I'm fairly certain I've already cashed in for a further 4.6 million, which I think takes the deal to nearly 15 million pounds that Inter paid us for Przemysław Dara, a guy who wasn't really ever going to probably play for us, couldn't seem to get a loan, and now has not played for Inter since he joined them either. So we just rinsed them for 15 million quid, and I'm very, very pleased with that, honestly. This is the kind of deals that, again, we just need to be doing to keep that money rolling in for the next set of prospects, basically, and it's working delightfully. Albin Sandberg also moved on to Al Jazeera because, again, at 34 years old, we were making some tactical tweaks later in the season that would see the wingers have a diminished role in our team, and as a result, it felt like Albin's time was up. But he's a very good player, and he did very well for us in the 3 seasons here, and he definitely served his purpose. Only 1.5 million, but we were just happy to let him continue his career and get a nice big payday. One of the bigger transfers was Stefan Carpanu, 100 caps for Romania. He's been at the club for years, 11, I think, or 12 seasons at the club. 30-year-old Romanian, of course, came through from Cluj. He's been a legend. He's done fantastic things for us, 215 league appearances, but well over 350, I think, in all competitions. What a guy, what a mental player he's been for us over the years. But the time felt right for him to move on because his contract only had, I think, a year and a half left on it, and I wanted to try and cash in while I could. Now, we didn't get as much as I would have liked. It was only 10.5 million in the end from Dinamo Kiev, but he kind of forced the move, and I felt that with the players we had coming through behind him, with obviously Niaksu, but Radojic and Mortenkamps Pedersen, there just wasn't going to be a lot of room for him in the squad anymore. So cashing in while we could made sense for him. So he's gone for 10.5 million. We had a lot of money going out this year. But the biggest outlay of all was Paulo Vinicius. And this is going to strike some of you that perhaps don't get the streams that often as a bit strange. I understand. Let me explain. So basically, we had some ties, and Paulo Vinicius was just consistently, I know that strikers do this on FM all the time, but he just could not seem to score a goal to save his life. He's still scored a lot of goals for us this season. I cannot pretend that he hasn't, but I did wonder if he was going to improve beyond his current point. I felt like we had some players coming through that if I gave them first team football consistently would easily outweigh Paulo Vinicius within a season and a half. So we had to take a risk, and that risk was to try to move him on. Unfortunately, the time to do that came exactly at the same time as the game decided that all of our squad value were going to drop for seemingly no reason, meaning that we lost a load of value on all of our players for absolutely no reason, which kind of sucks. But in the end, it was 27 million to Arsenal. However, and this is the best part, we do have a 50% and next sale fee clause, which means either he leaves Arsenal for huge money, which is potentially a possibility, or they'll try and buy it off of us. And if they do, they're probably going to have to whack about 30 to 35 million on the table to get it from us, which means I suspect that we could end up profiting around 60 million from the Vinicius deal, which you can see why we'd want to do that, given that we already had guys ready to replace him that didn't even have to be bought. And I think it was the right move for us at the time. He's got 10 and 19 in the league for Arsenal, but I just don't think he's quite got that prolific trait about him for whatever reason. And I think that the guys we now do have kind of do and will certainly in the coming seasons, particularly with our tactical switch as well. But now onto the transfers in. First of those was Eric Arboleda, £700,000 from Barcelona SC rather. I couldn't believe that this guy was available so cheap for 700 grand. And honestly, in spite of what the game considers about his star rating, look at the attributes of this man at 19. This here is just an absolute lie. He is fantastically good across the board. He doesn't always play for us, but he scored 3 goals and 7 assists this year. He's a fine option for us in this team. I really do like him. I wanted to get him out on loan or whatever, but the fact is, he could easily get a massive move to another one of those sides, potentially, later down the line, because I still think there's a phenomenal player under this guy, and he just seems to do good things in the match engine. So for 700 grand, easy. Then there was Ibrahim Egbo, picked him up on a free transfer, literally was at Echo Academy. We just thought we'd try a few absolute punts. Didn't particularly work out, but that's fine. He was free. Next up, Erik Hausken, a Norwegian central midfielder from Rosenborg. £2.2 million we paid for him. Again, it was more based on looking at what he currently had in terms of his attributes rather than looking at what he had for the future with this guy. Potential seems to be there okay, and considering some of the players we've got in the squad, that's actually pretty good considering. But it's his current potential. His current ability looked pretty solid in terms of his actual attributes, so it was worth the £2.2 million to try that out. Not spectacular, but worth a go. It's a similar story with Lucas Prucha, who we brought in from Zbrojovka. But he's gone out on loan to Drogheda this season while they were playing in the second tier, but getting promoted from the second tier. So there is that. Again, a player we took a punt on for 100k. He's not fantastic, but he's certainly good for the loan farm. More on the loan farm in a minute, though. Then comes the biggest outlay of the summer. Or the summer, it was the winter, actually. Petter Christensen from FC Copenhagen for £9.7 million. The second most expensive transfer ever. And I think signing him was part of the reason that Vinicius ended up moving on. Not because I expected to start Christensen, but I felt that I wanted to have room to give him more game time and allow our other 2 strikers to be further up the pecking order. So this is Christensen. Who is he wanted by, actually? I'm curious. I mean, that right there should tell you everything we need to know about us doing the right thing on him. For whatever reason, he just scores goals. He's got good attributes around the board. That much is for sure. But when I put him in the team, he just does things. He's got 8 in 6 starts in the league off of very little opportunities. He just gets in positions and scores goals. I think he's a fantastic player that's only going to get better as time goes on. I think we've got probably the Danish national team striker for about the next 15 years once he gets into the squad, coming up very soon. He's already got 7 goals for the under 21s as well. He's excellent. 11 goals this season for him. He hasn't started that much, only started 10 games for us, but he's just being so consistent. When he plays, he scores goals, and that's really what you want out of a backup striker. Firstly, to have a backup striker this good, but secondly, to have him just score whenever he plays. He's mad good, and I really like him. Then Enrique Fabia, who's just as of this gone on loan to Drogheda, as of literally right now. So that's technically for next season, £1.2 million from Nacional. He's in, and he's gone. He made some fuss. He's fine, but it was worth a punt, and it helps the loan farm. Next up, Paul Weber, Austrian centre-back. We paid £475 for him. Not 475,000, £475 from Sturm Graz. That was, I don't even know why we had to pay that, but we did. And needless to say, he's come in and he's clearly much better than that. He does lack the jumping reach though, but he had everything else to maybe go, oh yeah, we're still going to sign this guy. He's been out on loan at St. Pat's this season, played 12 games for them in the top flight, so he's clearly got a bit of quality about him. And I think if nothing else, we could maybe move him on for loads of money later. Another one of those types of signings, but at the very least, he has found a team for the loan farm. However, he has refused to go back to them next season, so that might be where his career in terms of the loan farm finishes. And if a big bid comes in, then we'd probably just accept it. But still, next up was Samuel Madi, who generated in Nigeria, and we saw him in the under 20 team, but he'd never had a club before. So I just thought, screw it, why not? We had to wait 2 years or whatever. But look at the value on him. How on earth is he worth this much? I've just noticed that. His value is absolutely obscene. We paid nothing for him because he didn't have a club. Mental. Never had a club. Then probably my favourite transfer, other than Petter Christensen, Miguel Ramos from Famalicão in Portugal. £675,000. He, for me, is the signing of the season in terms of value. Petter Christensen is great, obviously, but he costs a lot of money in order to make that happen. Miguel Ramos, on the other hand, 600 grand, or 700 grand if you like. He's just lovely. Across the board. Brilliant player. Only 17 years old. He's going to be an absolute star one day, and he's sort of sticking around the club. I don't think he's even on the dev list at this point because I'm that certain that there's a player here, and I want to try and keep him around. The consistency is the one thing that lets him down. He's not the biggest in the air, but he's still brilliant. Then, Nemanja Jovanovic from Vålerenga. Centre-back, we kind of like what we saw attribute-wise out of him. Again, these are a few transfers in there, but once we got them scouted, we kind of thought, okay, they're good for their age in terms of what they have, in terms of their attributes. To hell with their potential. We might be able to just beef them up a bit now and then flip them, potentially. But we cost £1 million. I think he's got decent attributes. He's good in the air. His heading is the only real downside to him at this point. And again, he only paid 3 times for us this year. Still, good little player. And lastly, is Ibrahim Bamadeli. A similar story to the other Nigerian, because they both had no clubs. We saw them in the under-20 side, picked them up on free transfers, and well, there you go. Just instant value out of nothing. Kind of mad, honestly. But that genuinely completes the transfers in this year. We didn't have as many players. It was just a bit of a fallow year, I suppose, in terms of real young prospects coming through. Luckily, this year, from the scouting we've done preliminary-wise, coming up for today's stream, there is a lot more players that were very much interested. It is far more virile, the soil or whatever. I'm implying like they're growing potatoes here with players. Needless to say, there's a lot more talent coming through this season, so I'm really hoping we can be picking up, 25, 30 guys this year. That's certainly the plan anyway, to keep that one moving. So 57 players out on loan at the time of speaking. Look at some of the records that these guys have got. Randy Hobbs, 27 goals and 5 assists for Sligo Rovers this year. Fidel Faye, 27 goals in there too. Hulvut Holvoot for Derry City, 10 goals from centre-back. Rigel with 2 there, obviously just been fantastic for Dundalk. Hanush as well with 17 goals this season for Sligo Rovers. What was that? 44 goals between Hobbs and Hanush this season for Sligo. Ashanu as well. He was considered for like the Golden Boy Award, I think. 21 goals for Derry City on loan. 33 goals for Unai Olonso, because he now has 3 caps for Ireland. You'll love to see it. He's now the Irish national team striker. What a guy. It's just been fantastic this year for us. Now, here comes the bad news. You'll notice that it's kind of nicely spread out. Bows have got 4 guys. Derry got 4. Dundalk have everybody. A few others in there too. Scamrock have got a decent amount. Shelbourne have a few. Sligo have bloody loads. And as a result, they've done fantastically over the last couple of seasons because of that. So, here's the bad news. Sligo Rovers have decided, you won't see it now, but this is what's happened, to cancel every single loan from us. Every single one of them. Which means that they are going to be absolutely ruined, because they won't be able to register any players for Europe. I cannot fathom the stupidity of doing that. How many players is that? 12 guys. They've lost 12 first-team quality players. And bear in mind, in Europe, you can only register a maximum of 3 new guys as replacements. So they're going to be 9 players down in their squad and have basically ended any chance they had of having any kind of European run this season. Utterly stupid from the transfer AI there of Sligo Rovers. So yeah, they're going to be crap now next season in both the league and in terms of European fixtures for us as well, because they've decided to send all their players back to us. Some of them I've already got loans for, like Randy Hobbs and a couple of extra guys I have managed to get loans for already, or Bradovic being another one. They've both got a Dundalk, but it is still really irritating that they sent all of their players back. Because when I got to the loan extension screen, they all said yes and it said extend, and when I clicked extend, every single Sligo player said player fails to attract offers. Only Sligo players. So annoying, but that's just one of the things you have to deal with. So that's going to set us back massively in terms of their development, and they will suffer horrendously for it because they are, I don't know, whatever's going on at the club is utterly moronic. In terms of the league, we ballsed it up again. We got 103 points this year. Obviously, good goal difference in there too. We weren't going to get the unbeaten season as we drew 3-0 with Dundalk, sadly. Luckily, we were going to lose that game at one point, so it was kind of good to bail it out. But unfortunately, it didn't matter because we did lose a game anyway. We lost to Bohemian. I'm going to find this game and show you how we lost our unbeaten season. This was the game that cost us another unbeaten season for the 3rd season in a row. Keaton obviously scored. We had 28 shots, 11 on target, and XG of 4.56, and lost 1-0. I was livid. And you can see a little preview here of the slight change to the system that we've been working with. You'll recognise it because it's the Nomad shape, and we are progressing with it now. But you'll also notice that Thies Freeze, what a season he's had. 25 goals, 24 assists. He's had the best season of his career. And you know that he won the Ballon d'Or last year? Well, he didn't win the Ballon d'Or this year. He wasn't even in the top 3. Man had the best season of his career, and he didn't win the Ballon d'Or, and the guys that did were just kind of fine, but nothing compared to what he did. I'm just going to show you now, actually, before we do anything else. Man has got 29 goals and 33 assists this season, 38 appearances and 62 goal contributions, and somehow he didn't win the Ballon d'Or this year, despite winning it last year with a much worse record. And arguably, the teams around him are better. But yeah, it wasn't even in the top 3. Mental. Did still get in the FIFA Pro Team of the Year for, I think, the 5th season running, but he was robbed of the Ballon d'Or. You'll also notice that Longford, newly promoted, of course, with all their money, did sod all with it and got relegated, whilst being the 4th highest wage spenders. And you can see, again, Sligo Rovers here, with that team, came 3rd in this league and were comfortably the 3rd best side. And next season, they'll be lucky if they finish 7th or 8th, honestly, because they're going to have no players. It's utterly stupid that they did that. And European football is going to absolutely tank because of it for them. So they might well have actually set us back several years in the old building a nation concept themselves with that idiocy. You tell them I'm a bit pissed at them. As for the second tier, Drogheda were promoted. Bray Wanderers were the team that reached the playoff final, but they did in fact lose on extra time in the end to St Pat. Cove Ramblers finished bottom of the league, but it's a lot closer than it used to be down here. It's weird seeing some of these teams like, well, Galway United and, well, Farps, people like that were, teams that were regularly in the top flight towards the start of this save that have just fallen like a stone, honestly. But now it's time to talk about Europe. and what happened last season. So we drew Man City, lost 1-0 at the Etihad in the 94th minute with Diego Morales. Play the clip. This has got annoying 1-0 win for City in the 94th minute written all over it. Wearing a red shirt? Oh, please no. What did I tell you? What did I f***ing tell you? I can't believe I actually called it that we would lose to a 1-0 goal in the 94th minute. Needless to say, we were a little bit annoyed. It was one of those games that could have easily gone either way. We had chances. It was this game with Paulo Vinicius where I just kind of went, oh my days, this guy cannot score to save his life. I think he himself had about 5 one-on-one opportunities and spurned all of them straight at the goalkeeper. It was mental. But then we lost 1-0 to City. But if anything, the second leg was even more annoying because the first leg was a very even game, which we lost out on. The second leg was not even in any way. We absolutely twatted them in this game. And again, Vinicius just could not finish a chance to save his life. Jemalau gave them the lead in this one, as we suspected. Alaku gave us the equaliser, but it was too late. And then Jack Ped scored a header from the edge of the area in the 94th minute, again, to see us out of the Champions League despite playing fantastically well over 2 legs. And at that point, we just thought, maybe we have to change something. Even though we played brilliantly in both games, certainly decently, and didn't deserve to go out, it doesn't matter if you do. And I feel like moving to our other system this year has definitely made us more defensively stable in the main thing, and I think that's what matters. Occasionally it doesn't mean we score the big numbers so much, but it does make us way better overall, and I think it just makes us less inconsistent. So that was us straight out of Europe there in the first knockout round. Disappointing times again. And it didn't get much better for the other Irish side. Sadly, Shamrock Rovers were knocked out by Dundee United, who, by the way, won the SPL that same season. So fair play. They're actually a decent side, and they've actually done all right in the Champions League this year. It's kind of mental. But yeah, they were out at that point. Luckily, though, things got a bit better in the Conference League as Dundalk were able to beat Dynamo Moscow fairly comfortably in the end and get themselves to the second knockout round, which meant we were going to have 3 Irish sides in the second knockout round. Sadly, they got whittled down very quickly, though, as Austria Vienna and Bose played out 2 different draws, and sadly, Bose went out on penalties. Narrowly, though, Dundalk, though, absolutely twatted themselves past Dinamo Zagreb to get themselves to the quarterfinals. Unfortunately, Sligo Rovers were knocked out 5-2 by Vitoria de Guimarães, so we did lose 2 of them at the exact same round, which is disappointing, but at least Dundalk went through. And then they continued that by actually avenging Bose and knocking Austria Vienna out of the Europa Conference League to get themselves to the semi-finals, where they would face off against, unfortunately, Newcastle, where sadly they went out 3-1 on aggregate. Very, very unfortunate. In the second leg, they were much the better side, and Newcastle just hit them twice, and yeah, just kind of did them. Or say, hit them twice. Hit them twice after they got it at 1-1. Real shame, as Newcastle went to the final against Wolfsburg, and of course Newcastle eventually won it. I think if Dundalk beat Newcastle there, which they probably deserved to, they would have won the whole damn thing, because Wolfsburg were not that good. They didn't even make it into the group stages of the Conference League the following season. You'll see why in a minute. So that ended our run, but they did at least get to the semi, so it still did well for us on the coefficient charts. Now, back into Europe this season. Of course, for ourselves personally, we didn't have to play any qualifiers. We went straight into the groups. Our group this year was Bayern Munich, Hearts, and Slavia Prague, which turned out much the way you would have expected, except it didn't start off like that. This is how it got a bit strange. You'll notice here, Hearts beat Bayern. Bayern then lost against Slavia Prague, and after 2 matches were bottom of the group with 0 points, and we'd obviously won both of our opening matches and were cruising, except that's where it took a bit of a turn for the worse, as we battered Bayern Munich at home and had to rely on a 79th minute goal from Jovetic to give us the equaliser, and then we played them off the park in Germany as well. They had 2 red cards and still managed to beat us 2-1 in this game. Utterly bizarre that they were still able to be Bayern against us, because that's just how it goes sometimes. It was very frustrating. But you can see that we're not scoring as many goals, but still doing okay and looking solid, albeit just a bit unfortunate against Bayern as it goes. Luckily, though, things were okay for us as we continued past that. Got Prague with the 3-0 victory there, and then beat Hearts 2-0 away on the final day to secure ourselves top spot. Bayern basically had 1 point after the first 3 matches, managed to win the entire second half of the group, and did sneak into Europe in the end. But there was a chance on the final day that we could have come third there. But needless to say, we do win our group for the second consecutive season as well. A really, really good group for us there. And I always felt that Bayern weren't that strong, and honestly, they were lucky to get the points they did against us. We were so unfortunate not to win this group with practically winning every game, honestly. But that's fine. We got the win, and our reward, Juventus. There are some other teams that we could have got that would have been amazing. We could have had Lille in the knockouts. We could have had Dundee United in the knockouts. By the way, Dundee United made the knockouts. But no, we got Juventus. So it's going to be tough, but I feel like we're more stable this year, and I think we've got a really good chance at a deep run ourselves. Now, as for the other Irish sides, they didn't progress too well. I'm going to gloss over a little bit of the qualifiers because there's just so much stuff there. Needless to say, you can pretty much assume every season that we're going to have at least 4 sides in group stages. This year it was 5 again. They all got through relatively stably. Dropping down, we had 2 in each, basically. But it was Sligo Rovers that knocked Wolfsburg out in the 4th round of the qualifiers for the Conference League. That's why I referenced it earlier. That's funny as hell, though. And in the aforementioned Europa League, Dundalk were able to qualify second in their group to get through to the following round. They lost eventually on the final day to Bode. If they'd won that game, they would have got top of the group. They were already qualified at that point, so there was no danger of them dropping out. But it was a decent group that they had, and they managed to get through it, which is is very good news. And the same can also be said for Shamrock Rovers. They had a tougher group, actually, with the likes of Lyon in there, and they did bloody well against Lyon. They actually drew against them home and away, and were winning in both games. They could have easily gone a different way in this group. If Lyon hadn't had, I think they had penalties in both games, they could have actually won this, but they still qualified in second, which is fantastic news. So we see both Dundalk and Shamrock Rovers qualify out of their Europa League groups. I think this is the first time we've had two teams get out of their Europa groups. As for the Conference League, it was a little bit more disappointing from Bohemian, honestly. When they were handed that group, I thought, right, they've got this. And unfortunately, they were bottom until the final day, and eventually managed to get a victory over CSKA Sofia, but it wasn't enough, and they ended up coming third. So they're the first. Last year we had all of them through, and both smashed it in their group. This year, disappointing. Still got some wins for us, which is helpful, but it could have been better. On the other hand, though, Sligo Rovers absolutely smashed it again. 3 wins, 3 draws, top of that group. And the hilarious thing is, this bit here was decided, it was decided on a head-to-head, which then was also level on points, which then obviously put FCSB at the bottom. But then the other one was decided by the head-to-head between Dinamo and Teplice. And because Dinamo had scored more away goals in the head-to-head, they were the ones that got that top spot in that group. Absolutely outrageous. But as a result, Sligo go through. They'll be shit after Christmas, of course, because they have no players and can't register anyone because they are run by morons. But life goes on. And this, of course, is the knockout round. And this is where it gets spicy, because we're battling Scotland hard this year. And it gets a little bit fancy now, because Dundalk face Rangers and Shamrock Rovers face Hearts. But there's also Hibs, Ross County and Celtic. Scotland have 5 sides in the Europa League knockouts. They're going to win the Europa League this season, aren't they? And it's going to ruin my dreams. Here's the fun part. We're at 10.5 points this season. Last year we got 13.7. You can really see the upward trajectory now, and we're losing some bad years. And the next 2 years we've got to make huge gains, and I think we will, hopefully. The key thing is, though, as things stand currently, we'd actually overtake Scotland at the moment. We've put a little bit of a gap between us over the course of this season, because despite the fact they've got so many teams in that knockouts, they've had to fall down a lot of them to get there, and that's been kind of good on our part. So provided we can still have a solid knockout round for our teams and get to sort of 13 points again, we're going to make some real inroads into the likes of France and Germany this season too, who are again going to lose some really good seasons in the next couple, and we're not. So we're going to hopefully keep making that ground up, and I think there's a real strong chance that we could challenge for a top 4 spot within the next 3 seasons, and that is a big step in the right direction for us. But it is still going to depend on what happens with Sligo Rovers. The only thing I can hope is that because Derry City are now starting to take a lot of our players, they might just have to become the new Sligo, but it's still very irritating. As for the transfer budget itself, you can see there's a lot of players that we're going to be joining us next season as well. £93 million, £400,000 in wage budget. It's all looking very good. Finances, £130 million in the bank. It's all dandy. Now, as for the tactical changes, you already know about the Nomad system. That's what we've been playing. But this is the kind of squad that we've been running with this season. I'll give you a quick run through with the likes of Araujo through the middle, Big Nobby, who is just ridiculous, and he just continues to get better, which is great. Obviously, we've got Stefan Valev on the right-hand side, who, again, he's like Christopher Carlson plus, but he doesn't have the same passing. He's still an absolutely outrageous player, though, and I'm really excited to see what he can do in that role. Sal, obviously, in the Akshu. Lindy and Fries in there, too, with Manea up through the middle. Alaku in there as well. Alaku will now be the new captain, of course, with Emmett Doran retiring. Navios back. Lukacic has made more appearances this season, so has Neslo. Mihov is still the goalkeeper. I've just signed him up to a new contract as well, so he's going to be here for a little while longer to give us a bit more time to bring through the likes of Mikolic, who's been back with us this season. But needless to say, it's been a really, really fun season. We're also retraining a couple of our wingers to play wing-back, so we can play them in the league there, just to keep them at the club and not have to worry about it too much. People like Solis and people like that. Also, Radojic has had a bit of a breakout season for us as well this year. He's become absolutely fantastic. 18 caps for Serbia at 21. Kind of gone under the radar a little bit, he did. But needless to say, I'm extremely excited to get stuck in to, obviously, transfers today, and obviously Juventus, when that eventually comes around. We'll probably get the first leg in today as well. We just need to see something out of us. And I think we're on the right track now. I think that this tactic is just way more stable, and it has made us look a lot better in games, even if at times we don't get the same big numbers. But I'm still very excited to see where that one goes. Ireland are still on the up at the moment, and I really do think that in 3 or 4 seasons, we're going to be talking about us being a top 4 team, and that's going to be huge. Hopefully at that point, maybe Sligo will get their act together again. Who knows? Anyway, if you have enjoyed this, drop a like. That'd be sick. Join me over on stream right now for the transfer window. What should I say? Use the word penguin. Penguin in chat if you've got this far into the video. I'll know, we'll all know together. So I will see you guys very, very soon. Subscribe if you're new, drop over on stream, and I'll see you soon. Hold your gun, capybara, bye-bye.